Hello, I'm Wave with the Woolery, and today we're going to talk a little bit about finishing wood items that you purchase as part of your fiber arts journey. People often ask, do I really need to finish my unfinished wood item? And I always tell them, yes you do. Really for two reasons. One, it protects the item from both humidity and body oils. Your hands, whether you believe it or not, your hands have oils on them, and every time you touch a surface, some of that oil is transferred to that surface. And then that oil will tend to attract dirt, grease, grime, and over time, your wooden item, whether it be a loom or a spinning wheel, will start to look dingy and grimy. So having a proper finish on your wood item will protect it from not only the body oils from your hands and keep the dirt off it, but it also protects it from the humidity. And humidity tends to do funny things with wood. Primarily it causes the wood to swell, and so the wood parts that move so freely when you first bought the item, once they swell, they won't fit as well and they'll tend to bind up. Conversely, if you live in a dry climate like Arizona, for example, the wood will eventually dry out and then things become loose and they don't fit as well. So just to summarize, the two primary reasons we finish wood are for protection from both humidity, loss or excess, and body oils, dirt, grime, grease, and things like that, but also to enhance the look of the item. And sometimes we want to change the color, sometimes not, but a finished wood item just looks nicer. The topics I'm going to cover today include safety items that you need to have on hand, as well as the different types of finishes that you can select depending upon what you're trying to achieve. Whenever you do a wood finishing project, the number one rule is safety first. And the number one safety rule is work in a well-ventilated area. This could be a garage, a carport, a back deck, anywhere where you have good airflow so that the fumes that may be emitted aren't accumulating in the area. The supplies you'll need for your finishing project, in addition to the finish that you select, include an application cloth. Old t-shirts are great for this. Anything cotton is really good. Old socks. You want to stay away from wool or synthetics. They tend to interfere with the chemicals in the stains. You want to have eyeglasses or safety glasses anytime you're using any kind of chemicals. And then it's also nice to have rubber gloves, keep the stain off your fingers, and makes cleanup that much easier, as well as protect your work surface with either paper, newspaper, flattened cardboard box works well, or a scrap of wood. The first finish we're going to talk about is wax, probably one of the oldest known finishing techniques known to man, and it's pretty simple, and if you're in a hurry, this is the method that you want to use. So this particular paste wax you can get at any home center or hardware store. This particular wax we actually sell here in the shop. Application is basically the same. You're going to wipe it on, wait a few minutes, buff it out. Your product is ready to go shortly thereafter, so there's no waiting. But you do have to occasionally reapply the wax depending upon how often you use the item. Maybe once a year, every 6 months, just buff it up a little bit. Keep in mind too, there are some waxes that have a tint to them, but for the most part, wax will not impart a color to the wood. So if you're fine with the natural look of the wood, wax is the way you want to go. Another wood finishing option is Danish oil. Some people call these penetrating oils. You can get it natural or tinted if you want to darken or change the color of your wood item. These are very easy to use. You simply wipe it on, wait a few minutes, wipe off the excess, and you're ready to go. It's not necessary to use a top coat with Danish oil, but you could, if you wanted, use a shellac, a wax, or a polyurethane. Another wood finishing option is simple wood stain. Wood stain will change the color of the wood, and they come in a variety of different shades depending upon what you're trying to achieve. Now the one thing to keep in mind when you use a wood stain is this is penetrating and it really doesn't offer any protection, so you will need some type of top coat once you stain your item. That top coat could be wax, could be polyurethane, could be sprayed on lacquer, but you will need some kind of top coat protection in addition to the wood stain itself. And again, these are easy to apply. It's simply wipe on, wait a few minutes, wipe off the excess, and you're ready to go in about 8 hours. As I mentioned with the wood stain, you will need to apply some type of top coat once you have the stain applied to the wood item. Top coats are typically categorized by 3 different options. One would be a simple paste wax or finishing wax. Again, you just wipe it on, wait a few minutes, buff it out. Polyurethane, which will impart a clear, shiny, or matte finish depending upon what style you get with a brush. And you need to wait 24 hours for that to set up and dry. Or if you're looking for something very shiny, sprayed on lacquer, or what's often termed a top coat at your home center, is the way to go. You have to be especially careful when you use the spray on lacquer. Again, well ventilated area, eye protection. Some helpful tips when you're finishing your wood item. Number one, some items that we sell here at the Woolery come unassembled, so assembly is required. I found over the years that it's much easier to stain and apply a top coat to the parts and pieces before it's assembled than it is once it actually is assembled. That's not to say it can't be done, but I think you'll find it a little bit easier if you apply your finish to the items as they come out of the box and then assemble them. However, one thing to keep in mind when you are going to pre-finish before assembly is you want to make sure that all these little holes, whether it's a screw hole or a dowel hole or a slot A into post B type situation, you want to make sure, especially your wax and your spray-on lacquer and your polyurethane, you don't want to get that in the holes because that can interfere with the assembly process. Anytime you're staining, a helpful hint is to do some test staining to make sure that the color that you're going to get is the color that you actually want. Nothing worse than spending a lot of time staining an item and then come to realize, well, that's not what I wanted or that's not what I expected. So a couple of ways you can do that. One is popsicle sticks are a good way. Stir sticks in the paint department of your home center are also unfinished wood that you can apply the stain, especially if you're wanting to color the item, or if you don't have a selection of wood that matches the item that you're wanting to stain. For example, this is wood from New Zealand, so we don't readily have that available here in the States. And so if I were to stain this, and I wasn't really sure, did I want the honey color or do I want the special walnut color? If I was undecided, rather than just jumping in the deep end of the pool, what I would do is I'd find an unobtrusive spot on the item, maybe the underneath side, and I could apply a 2-inch section of stain, both colors, and then I could decide between the two which one looks better, or no, I need to go back to the home center, try a different color. So again, you want to do a test stain so that you make sure that the color you're going to get is the color you actually want, and you really want to make sure that once you apply it, you give it time to dry, because wet stain often looks different than dry stain depending upon the wood species and how deep of a stain you're wanting to achieve. When we talk about wood stain, these are the most efficient and effective ways to impart a really dark, rich color on your wood items, more so than any of the other options that we've talked about. And again, these can be obtained at home centers, hardware stores, woodworking shops, and online. With wood stain, application is pretty straightforward. You want to shake up the can or stir up the can to make sure any of the pigments that may have fallen or settled to the bottom are suspended. And you simply take your old t-shirt, cotton sock, dip it in, and wipe it on. And the longer you let this set on the wood, the deeper the color will be. So you want to wait about 15 minutes or so, and then remove any excess that may have pooled on the surface, and also to smooth out any smears that you may have. If you want to do a second coat, you can do that after about 6 hours, and the more coats you put on, the darker it'll actually become. And then, as I mentioned with the wood stain, we do need to put a top coat on it. So once you apply your last coat of stain, you want to wait about 8 hours, and then you can apply your choice of top coat. Another option is the Danish Oil. Again, these are available at most home centers, hardware stores, woodworking shops, and several online marketplaces. And this is the wood finish that we use in our shop for things like our boat shuttle. So basically you wipe it on, wipe it off, and then in the case of the boat shuttle we actually put a thin coat of wax, but that's not necessary with this particular product. Applying Danish oil is a pretty straightforward process. First thing you want to do is make sure that you shake up the can so that any pigments have been well distributed throughout, so you get a constant, consistent color. Take your old t-shirt, cotton sock, basically put a little on it, try not to make a mess, and using your rag you want to basically flood the surface because it will soak in, so you keep applying it basically until it doesn't absorb anymore. And then what you want to do with the Danish oil is you want to wait about 30 minutes, come back, apply a second coat, wait 15 minutes, and then wipe any excess that's pooled and hasn't absorbed. It's ready to use after about 8 hours, or if you're going to apply a wax or some other top coat, again you can do that after 8 hours and then you're good to go. Earlier we talked about wood stain, and the saddle seat stool that we sell here at the Woolery is an example of a product that is finished first with the Minwax wood stain, and then we apply a top coat of simple paste wax. So again, the purpose of the stain is to impart some color to it. Purpose of the paste wax is to provide some protection to the item. And with this particular item, with the wax on the seat especially, again, depending upon how often you use it, probably once a year is all you need to do to dab on a little bit of wax, apply it, let it dry 15-20 minutes, buff it up, you're good to go. One of your top coat options is a paste wax. And again, application is pretty straightforward. You take your old cotton t-shirt, old cotton sock, you get some wax on it, and here's a wood item that we stained earlier. It's dried sufficiently, so now it's ready for the top coat. And you simply smear on the wax. You don't have to be too neat about it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wait 15-20 minutes, come back, get a clean t-shirt or old cotton sock and buff it up, and you're good to go. The final step in using a paste wax is the buffing process. So we've applied the wax, we've waited 15-20 minutes for it to dry. Now we come back. Don't use the same cloth that you did to apply it, because then you just add more wax to it, and that's not the point here. Take your clean t-shirt, old cotton sock, and basically buff it out, just like you're doing the hood of a car. And you're good to go. Another top coat option is a spray-on lacquer, or what's simply called top coat. And again, these are available at most home centers, hardware stores, wood shops, and even online. If you're looking for the most durable top coat option, spray-on lacquer is going to be your choice. This is an example of a product that's finished with a spray-on lacquer. This is actually a bench that we sell here at the Woolery, and the spray-on lacquer, you can get it high gloss, you can get it medium gloss, or you can get it a satin finish depending upon your personal preference. Thing to keep in mind, again, with spray-on lacquer is you want to do this in a well-ventilated area. You want to make sure that you're going to protect the product. Once you spray on the lacquer, you want to protect it from dust, from leaves, from animals, small humans, anything that's going to mess it up, because it will stay tacky to the touch for about, I don't know, an hour or so, and it takes really about 8 hours to set up. So you need to be able to have a place where you can apply this, again, that's well ventilated, but it also is going to be protected from the elements and other outside contaminations. Thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully we've given you some pointers and some useful information on how to finish your unfinished items. Hopefully you've coming away from this with an understanding that it's really not that hard. It just takes some time, some patience, a few simple supplies that are readily available, and you can make your spinning wheel, loom, hand carder, whatever, not only look beautiful, but last a long time. Please let us know if there's anything else we can do to help you out, and if you have any questions, send those along our way as well. Thanks again.